Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review more Wayne. Simply because I enjoy this show. Simply because I like it. And plus also, like, it'll be fairly quick for me to, like, kind of go on and wrap this one up, especially considering I'm going to be able to do 5 videos and then call it a day for this one, because there's only a 10-episode series, and then there's only possibly one season, because probably after this, the show probably got canceled. And Amazon is kind of about reviewing it, or renewing it. So, going into this show, I really do want to say, like, the first 2 episodes feel like a smooth transition, where it kind of feels like in this third and fourth episode, we kind of just drop these characters into this environment, and now we're going to see, like, how they're going to play along with this. Really, it kind of feels like, okay, so this is going to be, like, just a road trip kind of a show, where I think there's probably a real easy reason probably why the show got, like, canceled the way it did, was simply because it's a road trip show. Plus, maybe there was no idea of where to go to the second season, but because originally this was a YouTube show, and then it went on, and now it's a seemingly YouTube/Amazon show. So, with that said, I find this show to be funny. I find this show at some points to be just kind of like the way of which that they go about this show. Like, I'm just kind of like like so. Teeing it up, what are these episodes about? Well, it seems that we have Principal Tom Cole, who has a dog problem, and we, of course, desperately have the sergeant go out of his way to solve this dog problem. And because the sergeant still isn't really giving a about Wayne until he really has to, like, have to here, where we really have just the sergeant still going on and on about, like, he for only a number of hours was to be fearing for his life, but then all of a sudden he is to still go on and talk about second chances and stuff. Like, I'm like, man, they really have already, like, gone on and given this guy a very limited amount of things to go on and say, really, from supposedly a recovery of panicking that he might have a lump on his junk. So, with that said, we have these characters in episode 3 that are to both Wayne and Del, who are put onto this this motel, desperately trying to get a room. And so it seems that we have characters who are, of course, to have money from that whole bet win. But it seems that in the following episode after that, they now have to go and scrounge for money. And I'll talk about that more in spoilers. We go on and have Wayne, who, of course, is to, in the fourth episode, go on and do this this kind of side job to try to get cash. And Dell is mentioning that she's going to pawn certain things, but then she turns around and doesn't do that, but instead goes off and is to try to desperately go on and get this dress instead. This dress to go on and go to this funeral for a stranger that she's never known before. Weird show, very odd, but with that said, we also have both Orlando and the principal having their own kind of side story in this episode also. And it's kind of interesting how, like, when we go through the first 2 episodes, like, we have a lot of interesting story, where I think this show, after the first 2 episodes, has kind of slowed down a lot more, where we also really don't even have Dell's dad in this episode. All of a sudden, we have Dell's dad who is now just vanished, and we all of a sudden have her twin brothers who are desperately trying to go off to go and find her and retrieve her. I'm like, well, like, was that just a thing of just like, well, we obviously can't keep this guy for X amount of episodes because simply he's going to go on and do any number of other projects besides this one. And so it's like, yeah, like, put this on your resume, but you're only going to be there for what, like the first two shows, and then you're going to be gone for the rest of the thing, and then you might come back at the very end. It could be that kind of way of approaching this show. So, with that said, let's go out of our way. Let's just go into spoilers about this one because they're already there anyways. So might as well go and say that it is spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time again to spoil the show. I know the views aren't huge on this one. I have other things kind of in the runs right now. In the runs, I have other things going on right now that I can just have fun with this show, and that's what I'm going to do. Really, when also looking at it, I want to kind of try to get this as quickly done as possible because the latest Peacemaker episode is coming out, so I want to cover that. So it's like a race to get this done, but I want to kind of go and do it justice and do it correctly. So with that said, so in this third episode, we, of course, the very beginning of it, we have both Wayne and Dell who are just kind of off in the shade, desperately looking at some girl named Delora, or Deborah. There we go. Who seems to be a hooker, and so we have Wayne go over there and is talk to her and come back, and Wayne is to say to Dell that she's too young, or Wayne's too young. And so Dell goes over there and she's to talk to Deborah and is saying that she's going to give her a big amount of money. I'm like, okay, what for? So we go on and we have Deborah who's booking a room for both Wayne and Dell. So that's what they're doing. I was like, oh, so, because I guess they're not old enough to get their own room, so they now need to use Deborah to just book a room. So we go on and we have them book a room here, and so Dell is desperately wanting to go on and use her bathing suit for this pool, but it seems like this pool isn't all that clean and healthy and whatever. As they're going looking over it, realizing that it's like, ugh, that doesn't look nice. So we go on and we have the principal here, who of course is to be Tom Cole, who is going on and having the sergeant go and question a bunch of students at this school. And it seems that the only one that really is to give any answers is Orlando about him doing some illegal things that isn't what has anything to do with Wayne. To where eventually Orlando is like, well, I'll shut up and have you just tell me what you need me here for. So, so we go on and have... Because Orlando is like confessing about his adult magazines, or he's confessing about certain weapons being in his locker, or a number of things. And so the principal's like, oh no, that's not what we're having you here for. We're here talking to you about Wayne. Orlando is to mention that he has a bruise upon his face because Wayne isn't here. And so now that that Wayne isn't here, Orlando is trying to go on and kind of dodge being hit or getting beaten up by people. So really nothing is to come out of this. Like, they don't figure out where Wayne is going, and so we go on and have the principal going on and rattling off about a number of dogs that have all been dead every single time the principal is to get one. And so the sergeant and the officer are going on and hearing this story, and so instead of them still going on and doing anything further about this whole Wayne case, the sergeant and Officer J are going and investigating thorough and deathly about Tom Cole's dog, finding out after doing a toxicology report that his dog has been poisoned by one of his neighbors. And he's like, "Oh my god, like Bob, he's been killing my dogs," because we see Tom here going and carrying his doghouse off to the garbage. And we have one guy going and talking about his Bruins, and he's like, yeah, whatever. So we go on and we have these officers coming to Tom's house and telling him, "Yeah, we did the toxicology report on your dog and found out that your dogs have been getting poisoned." And so Tom thinks it's Bob, but it's actually his other neighbor who is to consistently give him crap about his Bruins. And so Tom's like, "Really? That guy? That neighbor?" And so the Officer J is to tell Tom, it's like, "Well, hey, it seems that before these dogs were to die, they were really happy because they must have been taking like antidepressants or something." So Tom goes on in this episode and he makes it back to school and goes to the faculty bathroom, and Orlando follows him in there. And so Principal Tom is telling Orlando, "How did you get into this bathroom? Because this is a faculty bathroom." And Orlando's like, "Well, I took a key." And he's like, "Oh my god." So we go on and we have both both Orlando and the Principal Tom get out of the bathroom, and everybody's looking at him funny. He's like, "What?" Like he stole a key. So I don't know why this bathroom is that heavily locked, but it is what it is. So, and I don't even know why they have a faculty bathroom. That makes no sense. So this school must be rich. So we go on here and we have Orlando telling Principal Tom that he desperately wants them to go on a road trip to make it to Florida to go and meet up with Wayne. And Principal Tom is like, "No, like I'm busy. I have to go on and do a conference. I have to go and I have to meet a bunch of other principals and do this kind of this meetup that of course is in I think Carolina, North Carolina, South Carolina." So we have Orlando that's saying that, well, Florida is just nearby that location. And Tom is like, "Well, I guess you know your geography." So we also have it where Orlando is telling Principal Tom, it's like, "Well, hey, like spring break is coming up soon, and what better way to go and justify like what we're gonna do for this spring break is to go and find Wayne and Dell." So we go on, and after Principal Tom is to go and find this dog and is to sick this dog on his neighbor because the dog that Principal Tom is to buy, the dog hates everybody. It even hates the guy that is to feed it, basically. And so Principal Tom's like, "Yeah, I want this one." So Principal Tom goes and takes this dog off to his neighbor for him to probably rip into him. And so then Principal Tom calls Orlando because we have Orlando's mother giving Principal Tom permission for them to go to Florida together, and that Orlando's mother will give this guy whatever kind of money that he needs to go and do this road trip. I'm like, man, what is like Orlando's mother just trying to get rid of him? Like, what the heck? So we have Principal Tom going and calling Orlando and telling him it's like, well, hey, like, sure, we'll go on to Florida and tell your mother that I want $300. So now let's go back. So we of course have Wayne and Dell, uh, who are going to seek out this pool. Uh, Dell looks great in a bikini, so let's go and check this whole pool situation out. Which again, the pool isn't all that sanitary. So we have all these kids going on, and I guess they're on this road trip to go and find the crappiest hotel. And so we go on and have these characters here go on and all do this truth or dare. So we of course have it where Wayne and Dell are to see that they have newspapers that has their picture on them and saying all this stuff, and so Wayne is wanting them to just stay in the hotel all day, and Dell just buys up all the newspapers and says like, hey, like, problem solved. So we go on and we have, of course, both Wayne and Dell that goes out there, and these kids eventually go on and ask these two their names, and Wayne ends up saying that his name is John Wayne, and Dell's like, well, yeah, because like our mom and dad loves westerns. So both Dell and Wayne are to supposedly say that they're brother and sister here. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I thought they were going to be, like, boyfriend and girlfriend, or at least friends. Like, that's, like, the whole thing here. I'm just kind of, like, where are they going with this relationship? Or, like, I would be hoping that at some point, like, we'd have either Wayne win Dell over more or something. It seems like Wayne is going out of his way to technically win Dell over, but I don't know. Like, it doesn't seem like definitive, but I don't know. Maybe it is technically possibly love at first sight. Who knows? But it's like love that neither one of them are going to tell one another that they love one another. But it is what it is. So we go on and we have this truth or dare going on between all these people, because heaven forbid they get into this pool, right? So, because it's unsanitary. So we go on and we have one of the dares going on, and being that two of the kids are going to go and switch bathing suits. And so the girl ends up getting the guy's bathing suit, and the guy ends up getting the girl's bathing suit. So the one guy is just kind of wearing it out, like, yeah, like, I fit in this. But the girl is to realize that she doesn't have a top on. And so she's like, oh my god, like, what do I do? And she's like, okay, let's switch back now that we did this. And they're like, oh, no, you gotta wear this throughout the whole game. And so we have Emma here, who goes on and puts a towel over her chest, so that way, like, she can go on and continue playing the game here. So we go on and we have both Dell and Wayne, who both pick truth. And so Dell has to say this story about the time that she was in some Zamboni and was doing it with a guy. And we have it to where, like, Dell is to be a much easier liar than Wayne is. And so, because Wayne is, of course, to just say that his name was John, and that was a lie. But Dell is to go on and make up this whole story about her parents going and having this one thing that kind of relieves heart attacks or something, or puts like a balloon into a heart and weirdly does that concoction. And they're like, oh, well, my dad had a heart attack. So we go on and we have Dell talking about the time she did it with in a Zamboni, and so now it gets to Wayne, and so they're saying like, "Hey, don't wuss out," basically, and so Wayne is immediately choosing truth, and so they're going on and saying it's like, "Well, hey, uh, what's the worst thing that ever happened to you? Like, what's the worst thing that's so?" Wayne all of a sudden goes into this record playing story where we have it to where Wayne and his older brother, used to just beat on him all the time. Because we find out that it's not just because of record player, it's just that his brother just liked beating on him all the time. So, let me pause here for 1 second. Alright, so Wayne goes and talks about his older brother beating on him, and so he says that this story is to deal with some record player and how Wayne accidentally broke a little bit of this record player, and then his brother would just get really upset about it. But then we go on and have Wayne, who's just had it with his brother, and so Wayne finally really did completely break the record player, and so we had it where Wayne goes off and is to cuff his brother and is to get some good licks in, but then eventually the cuffs break, and then his brother chases after him, and so Wayne goes and falls down this flight of stairs and is dead for 2 minutes, and when Wayne's father is to come back home, he's had enough with Wayne's older brother, and probably either kicks him out or sends him off to jail. So maybe at some point Wayne is going to get to either, one, see his older brother, two, get back with his older brother, because that's the only family he has left, or three, we're never going to hear about his older brother ever again. Because Wayne only has his brother, and that's about it. But I don't know, I don't think there's probably going to be any reason for Wayne to go back to his older brother to simply get beaten up. That just seems unreasonable. So we go on here, and so now it's Tug's turn, and so Wayne turns around and tells this guy, "Hey, don't wuss out." So this guy, of course, picks Dare. And so Wayne goes on and tells this guy to go and get this bike and break into one of these apartment rooms, and is to basically jump off from one of these hotel rooms right into this pool. And so the one guy's like, "No, that sounds crazy. Like, you can get hurt doing that." And so it's like, "Well, hey, like, I dared you." So what happens instead in this show is we have Wayne, who ends up doing the dare himself. And he, of course, successfully goes and does all the stuff that he is to say, dunk himself into the pool, and, like, makes it out of the pool, and he's like, "Ah." So all of a sudden we now have the hotel owner who's calling the police, because these people are to, of course, broke a window and gone on and splashed in this pool, which I guess is some kind of, for some odd reason, an illegal thing. Well, I guess maybe the breaking of the glass thing was probably the, like, vandalizing or something. So we go on and we have Wayne and Dell hiding as all the other kids are getting arrested by these cops. And so we, of course, have the kids who are going on spotting both Wayne and Cal. And they're like, "Oh, get him, officer," as they're also getting arrested. So before that happens, we have Dell asking Wayne about that whole story and if all of it is true. And so Wayne is like, "Well, the only thing that I made up was the whole thing about the record player." And she's like, "Oh." so you did lie. And he's like, yeah, I made up about the record player. Like, I got one past you. And so we have both Wayne and Dell who run off, and they are to supposedly have this Deborah go and help them out, but she helps herself out with stealing their money. And so when Wayne and Dell run off, they realize the money's gone, and so they end up running off. So eventually, within episode 4, let's get into episode 4 as let's pop up the cast list for a brief second here. So we also have, in these episodes, we of course have both Dell's twin brothers going and searching, seemingly for Dell. Of course, we have it where they are sending through social media saying that they're going to go and find their sister and go after Wayne. And Principal Tom is seeing this social media feed of them going on and wanting to do that. And that they're going to get baseball bats. And Principal Tom is like, well, maybe they're baseball players. And I was like, no, they're coming after Wayne. So we go on in this episode, and so we also have the Sergeant and Officer J that are deciding to go on and get use up some of their vacation time to go and solve this case, going and trying to get Wayne and Dell themselves by taking matters into their own hands. So it seems that Officer J is to only have like his police outfit, and that's it. So I guess this guy just works every day or just wears the same clothes all the time. I think it's just the thing of like they just didn't want to come up with any kind of alternative clothes for this character. So they're just like, let's be cheap here. So probably maybe Sergeant Stephen went and got his own clothes and it's like, yeah, this is what I would normally wear or whatever. So but yeah, so we have both of the twin brothers who are going on and wreaking their own havoc, going on to this one restaurant and saying that they are, of course, to have a birthday and they're getting free pancakes, but they're kind of taking advantage of the whole free pancakes thing. And so they keep shouting to the waitress to continue to give them pancakes as we go on and have one brother complaining to the other about how he didn't get something from their dad. Like that there was one time where they were going skating and supposedly they only had enough for one pair of skates. And both the kids were supposed to get like turns skating, but only one kid did. And yada yada yada, like a bunch of boo-hoo freaking sad stories from one twin that I guess didn't get anything from their dad, and one other twin did. So we go on here, and I guess since their father didn't really give a crap about these kids' birthday, we go on and we have Dell, who is giving them a message through their phone, and they realize, oh, voicemail. And so they find out that Dell was to call them quickly or leave a message and just say like, hey, Carl, hey, God, what was the other one? What are the twins' name? Oh, Teddy and Carl? Yeah. Happy birthday. And they're like, oh, what a thoughtful bit. And so and so I just thought that was funny. So we go on, and in this episode we have both Wayne and Dell who are sneaking into a house that is to be sold off here. So since this home is technically abandoned to be an open house for people to come in and try to sell it, we have both Wayne and Dell in this house that are just kind of living there without anybody's knowledge. So we go on and we're having Wayne going and using the shower with some kind of mango shower gel in there. And we have Dell mentioning how happy she is that they gone on and they're doing their laundry, and the I think the dryer is to go on and have this little song once it finishes. They're so happy about that. So we all of a sudden go on and have them kind of reading the newspaper, and we have Dell kind of mentioning all the stories that are on there and that they're all sad and whatever. So all of a sudden we have one guy who is to be selling the house going on and trying to sell this house to this one couple. So we go on and have Wayne and Dell kind of scrambling for all of their stuff, and then they realize that the dryer is going to go off soon and sing that little song. And so we of course have Wayne, or yeah, I'm assuming Wayne, toss this pot on top of this guy's car, and he goes and he's like, "Oh my god, you first," because he doesn't know who it is. But so they go and they scramble and get all their stuff and run out of there. So now, of course, they don't have money, and they don't have money for gas. So we just have Wayne, who's just dragging this motorcycle around to wherever the heck that they're going next. So we go on, and we also have the moment in this episode, because I can kind of say this anywhere because it's not connected to this other part of the story. We, of course, have Reggie and his father that are going on and just joyriding with this Trans Am. And so, and I'm trying to think what this guy's name actually is, but I don't think he's actually shown on here. Of course not. So they go on and they're joyriding, and they're probably smoking weed. Not quite sure. Maybe it's just a cigarette. Like, it's a very like brown cigarette, so I don't know what kind that is. But anyways, so let me know in the comments below what kind of cigarette it is. I don't smoke. I don't care to. And plus, I'm allergic to it. So we go on here, and all of a sudden we have this old couple in this RV that bumps into the car. Doesn't really do any damage to it. Maybe just kind of cracks the back of the bumper a little bit. But it's kind of like a very it's like a very small crack. And so we just go off and have both these guys just bashing the crap out of this RV, forcing this couple to run off, fearing for their life. So these guys are just going off and just bashing all the way through this RV, smashing completely the windshield, going and smashing every single headlight, and just every bit of ripping things off, going and ripping one of the car doors off of this RV, going and tossing everything from inside the RV, outside the RV, and I'm like, oh my god, this is a lot of damage. Man, what a waste. What a waste of money that they're technically doing, that they might have to is this just a junker RV that they're gonna just destroy anyways? Was this one of those RVs where they probably had to tow it all the way here because it's a junker RV that they were gonna just destroy? I can't think that they're gonna reuse this RV at some point, or if they do, it's they would have to go and pay for all the parts. But I guess that's the story here. It's obviously hey, just go to town on this. Because it's a write-off. So we go on, and so what ends up happening is both Wayne and Dell are noticing that there's a bunch of guys just kind of standing in front of this one place, realizing that Dell says here that these guys are waiting to go and get some construction jobs. And so Wayne should go over there to try to see if he can get money from these guys, because they're probably illegals and they're just kind of standing by to just get some uh, some side cash that's kind of under the table. So Wayne goes off to stand next to these people, and we have a guy who, of course, is to be Eric here, who is to ask for a number of people, ask if they have tools. And all Wayne has this hammer. It's like, well, good enough. He has like a ball peen hammer that really I don't think is really, like, I never really thought like a ball peen hammer was really all that effective of a hammer. I would always want to usually get a regular hammer because I'm like, what the is this? Like, I thought it was a joke whenever I saw a ball peen hammer, because I'm like, I don't think that this is going to be effective enough to do anything. So, like, unless you're, like, going on and, like, you're trying to bang out a dent or something, maybe a ball peen hammer would be a lot better use, because it's, like, a thing that you could probably get dents out of something, but that's about it. So we go on, we have Wayne with a bunch of these other guys go on to work on this house. And so this whole entire time we're basically having these guys go on and tell Wayne that he's the worst at this job and like he can't do anything. And we consistently have Eric who's telling these guys that they're doing an awful job, because even if they are to do a good job, he just wants to figure out a way to sucker them out of money, or he just wants to figure out a way to just treat them like garbage, because he's going to go on and try not to pay them after this job is done. So we go on, and we of course have Wayne, who is to be told to tear down this one wall with this sledgehammer, to all of a sudden have Eric go on and be like, hey, what are you doing? Why are you taking down this wall for? And all of a sudden, Roman comes in, this other guy who is to be the only guy that speaks both English and Spanish, as well as the one guy who's working alongside Eric here. We go on and we have Ramon, who is to mention that this wall had mold on it, and so that's why they were taking it down. And so, really, Wayne was right in taking this wall down because it had mold. Because Eric wanted to go and take this wall out of this guy's pay, and I think really they were trying to get rid of this guy on purpose. One of the guys were, so that way this guy could get fired. So we push on here. So after the 2-day job is done, we go on, we have Eric, who every single time he's done with this job, he tries to go on and get out of paying them by bringing them to immigration, to where these guys go and run off to try to avoid getting arrested and to be deported. So Wayne, who's upset about that, goes after this guy who's trying to get these guys out of this van. All right. So we have Wayne going and chasing after this van, and so Wayne goes and is to fling this hammer and smack this guy's windshield. And so Wayne figures out a way to get this guy to stop, and so Wayne goes on and pulls this guy out of his van, nail guns him to his van, and then rescues all of the workers. telling them that, hey man, he was gonna get immigration on you. You guys better run off. And like, oh, thank you, thank you. So, or muchas gracias. They all run off. So we also had the moment where Ramon was being nice to Wayne and giving him his lunch because, like, hey man, like, I eat this kind of stuff all the time, and here you go. Um, but he goes on and talks about his wife and how his wife would make a much better meal, but sadly enough, she's gone. Uh, she's in uh, she's in some other part of the world. I don't remember what name it was, and so like maybe at some point, maybe he'll want to go on. Maybe this guy will want to go on and go back to her, but it seems like he's just trying to be desperately like figuring out a way maybe to get some money together to get the rest of his family over to the United States. Not quite sure. So, uh, so we go on here and uh, we have Wayne after the first day is to make it back home to Dell, saying that she wants to go to this girl's husband's funeral. Because Dell is to mention to Wayne that she's going to go and try to pawn some stuff. She's going to go and try to pawn her headphones and pawn her necklace that is to be supposedly, I guess, 14 karat gold or something. So Wayne is telling Dell, it's like, well, you got that from your mother. And Dell is like, well, yeah, but she also taught me to survive also. So Dell goes on and goes to this pawn shop where she finds out that the pawn shop owner is doing something illegal, going and doing fake IDs and fake passports. And so Dell is going on to see that this pawn shop owner was not willing to give this girl any money for this watch, saying that it's to be this cheap watch, which it actually wasn't. So Dell goes on and is to tell this pawn shop owner that you're going to give this girl money for this watch and for this stuff, because, or I'm going to go on and send this picture to the police and have you get arrested of the whole fake IDs and fake passport kind of ring that he's doing here. So we have the guy go on and give this girl money because she is to desperately need it because she's going and burying her husband. And so I guess she had absolutely no money to go on and do any number of things to try to bury her husband. Here's the thing though, like, so she is to have money to go on and do like this wake and then go on and bury him in the ground and all. Like, you would have thought like this girl would have just like cremated him and just called it a day, because like probably doesn't have money for any number of this stuff. But who knows? I don't know this woman. So Dell is trying to do the right thing and weirdly want to go to this woman's husband's funeral. Really, Dell is a stranger to this woman, and Wayne is to say that. It's like, well, so, like, how is it that you know this woman? Why do you want to help? Why do you want to go to this woman's funeral? And Dell's like, I don't know, I think it's just a good thing to do. Wayne's like, and so Wayne is just like, okay, go on and do that. So Wayne, after his hard day at work, is to go on and show up at this funeral with just whatever he's wearing, as Dell was to go on to this one thrift store, desperately going and figuring out some black dress to wear, and the only black dress that she has to wear is to basically just be this thing that is kind of like barely covering her, and that was the only black dress they had. So Dell goes to this funeral, and she had to, like, she basically had to steal that dress because the guy who was ringing her up was just saying like, hey, just take the dress. Like, I steal stuff here all the time, so go ahead and just steal this dress. Because I'm sure she wasn't going to pay for it, even though it was like $20, but still, like, I bet she barely had a dime to her name. So we go on here and we have Dell that goes to this funeral, and then really that's just the tail end of this episode, or the real just end of this episode is them going to this funeral. And so with that said, let me just double check here if there's anything else that I should have covered, because I'm sure there is. Anything else really is to be just kind of like small meat and potatoes. Really, there was the one point where both the brothers were gonna go on and attack their dad in his one room, and they were kind of like counting down to go and do that. But the message from their sister kind of stopped them from doing that. Uh, we had the one moment where Dell was going to the church and telling the one preacher to not touch anybody, so to speak. I don't want to use the word. I don't want to use the term that they used because I don't want to talk. I don't want to say that word. But anyways, so yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all that I wanted to say. I did that in a kind of very quick like pace because I went on and kind of like spent a lot of time just kind of focusing on one thing and not much of the dialogue. So with that said, I think I'm going to get out of here and eventually go on into Peacemaker because I guess that's gonna be the next thing I cover today. So I'm gonna go out of my way to say goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.